I'm Daryl Greer with the Canadian Press. I'm wondering, Canada and Australia, it's not really a secret or surprise that we're close. Why now? Are you anticipating some kind of impending global conflict that signaled the need to strengthen this relationship? Like, how is a member of the Australian or Canadian public supposed to take this other than as you are preparing for war?
Actually, if I may just provide a little clarity to your question, we're preparing to avoid war. Yes. I think the best way to prepare to prevent conflict is through strength and preparation. Doing that collaboratively with our closest partners is the way we have always approached the maintenance of global peace. We have relied since the Second World War on an international rules-based order, which is being challenged, as we've already articulated in our earlier remarks. But the best way to respond to that is with unity of purpose, with strength, and with resolve. And I think if we are able to demonstrate to those who may act adversarial to those global interests of maintaining a peaceful environment, then I think our best hope for achieving that is doing it together. As you've already acknowledged, there's a long-standing and trusting relationship that exists between our two countries. It is, I think, the basis of the strength of that relationship that we are always looking for opportunities to build upon. This is a long-standing partnership that does not require renewal. It just requires a continued commitment, and we've had an opportunity to discuss that today.
Yeah, I mean, Bill's put it very well in the sense that our cooperation is based on seeking to deter. We are absolutely about working with each other so that we can avoid conflict. That is obviously front and centre in terms of the way in which we are engaging in our cooperation. You asked the question as to why now, and that's a fair enough question to ask. The world is facing a situation today where the global rules-based order, an order which seeks for countries to resolve their differences not through power and might but by reference to a set of rules, that system is more under pressure now than at any point since the end of the Second World War. We see it in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine, we're seeing expressions of it in the Middle East, but we're seeing it in the Indo-Pacific as well. And what's become manifestly clear is that theatres are becoming interconnected. What happens in the Indo-Pacific is relevant to what's happening in the North Atlantic and in Europe. And so we, for example, in Australia, find that the moment China and Russia entered into a no-limits agreement on the eve of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, suddenly a conflict in Eastern Europe became deeply relevant to us in the Indo-Pacific, to Australia, because the lessons that would be learnt there, good or bad, would be lessons that would stand in terms of the Indo-Pacific. So we live in a much more connected world. We live in a world where there is fragility and where the Indo-Pacific is highly relevant. And as both of our countries have gone through separate exercises to try and understand the strategic challenges that we face and therefore what kind of a defence force we need to build in order to meet those challenges, both of us have come to the conclusion that the Indo-Pacific matters, and that's why now. And in that context, we find ourselves as countries who have always had the closest of friendships, who have deep trust, with the opportunity to use that as a platform to work much more together in the future, and that's what we've agreed to do today.
And you were talking about China's military expansion and their cozy relationship with Russia. There's no sign of them backing down. They've already broken the rules. What's it going to take for Canada, Australia, and its other allies to actually take a stand and instead of just using, say, diplomatic language and rhetoric to talk about how they don't follow the law?
Well, I think to answer that question, what's at issue here, as I said, is the global rules-based order. Firstly, diplomacy matters. It's actually the front line of the way in which we engage. But we are doing more than that, and we're doing more than that on this day. Both of us mentioned the maritime cooperative activity which is being undertaken as we speak between Australia, Canada, the Philippines and the United States. That involves a joint sail on the West Philippine Sea, the purpose of which is to assert freedom of navigation, the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. It is absolutely about maintaining the global rules-based order, and that activity and the raft of activities that we have done like that actually is making a difference in ensuring that the rules that we all understand are still maintained and still apply. And we see that there is going to be a need to do more of that in the future, and we need to be doing that with our friends, and we do not have a closer friendship in the world than we have with Canada, and that's why we see affirming that friendship with the agreement that we've reached today as being so important.
And if I may add, you'll see in our new defence policy update, Our North Strong and Free, the acknowledgement of our responsibility to assert and maintain and protect our sovereignty in the Canadian Arctic is being challenged by a number of potential adversaries, Russia and China in particular, but not exclusively. And our response to that is to acknowledge that challenge and to talk to Canadians about the investments that we're going to have to make in order to defend that sovereignty and to assert our defence in the North, and to respond, I think, appropriately, proportionally, but with resolve to adversarial actions in the region. It's very similar to what we're seeing in the Indo-Pacific with real challenges. Canada has recently, for example, just over the past 2 years, engaged in a number of sails through the Taiwanese Strait. That has, on occasion, elicited a response from the People's Republic of China. But our intent there is not to provoke. Our intent there is to assert a principle. And it's a principle of the freedom of navigation of international waterways. It is one of those international rules of which we have all come to rely. It is the rules that have really been the forefront of defense of all free nations in the world. And we're standing up for that principle. And it's more than just complaining about their activities. I think it's demonstrating that we are prepared not just to work unilaterally, but to work in alliances and in partnerships with our closest allies to stand strong in the face of those challenges.
Jennifer Meyer from Radio Canada, CBC French. Can you, Minister Blair, comment on the state of the fleet of vessels in Canada, and namely the ones that are currently in Esquimalt, and if they will be part of the 3 warships that are sent to the Pacific each year?
Yes, first of all, we have 3 warships that we are deploying, and currently the HMCS Montreal is deployed in that multilateral exercise that Richard spoke about earlier in the West Philippine Sea. The state of the Canadian Navy, we have currently a number of different platforms, and relying most heavily on the Halifax fleet of frigates that we are deploying in the Indo-Pacific, but also in the Atlantic and around the world. We are committed to maintaining it. In our latest budget, we included money for the maintenance, but we are also undertaking a very ambitious program of updating our surface combatant fleet. And so we have already embarked on a program of replacing and creating 6 new Arctic Offshore Patrol vessels, and we are beginning the construction, and we've cut steel on the very first one, of a new surface combatant ship, ultimately which will deliver 15 of those ships to the Royal Canadian Navy to replace our now aging Halifax fleet. We are also undertaking and beginning the process of identifying the right submarine capability for our Royal Canadian Navy, and there are a number of, I think, excellent options available to us, and the Navy will tell us what they need, and we'll go out and pursue that. We recognize that, and through our defense policy, I think we made very clear that there are new challenges facing our national defense, and that we have to invest significantly in upgrading our platforms. And so, although we have great confidence in what we are currently sailing on and flying, we recognize that many of those fleets, both air and naval, are aging and need to be replaced, and we're making those very significant investments to do just exactly that.
Thank you.